I thought now that we talk about the new features of 2.1, as I said earlier, from the user perspective, so that things you can actually see that are different in 2.1 as opposed to 2.0. And in no particular order, talk about the extended attributes, the changes to the logging framework, talk about what we mean by engine agnosticism and extra security features that have been added to the editor. The external data gateway, which provides a new way of mapping data to and from cases and tasks. Talk about how net's complete. Look at the monitor servers, the LDAP log data input, and a few other things at the end. So I'll work through the slides first, and then I'll demo a couple of things live. So, extended attributes. In 2.0, we had one extended attribute that was default, which was read-only, which was really just a proof of concept. It's been greatly enhanced now with a whole host of extended attributes, many of which are there to affect the display of dynamic forms that are generated by the default worklist at runtime. So, by default, since they're generic, they're fairly bland to meet all circumstances, but many of the extended attributes allow you to change colours, change fonts, add images, add text, and those sorts of things. There are other extended attributes that override schema facets. So in your complex data types that you create at design time, you might add a facet, a restriction facet to match the input to a certain pattern, a string pattern, to not exceed a certain range of number, for example. You can override those facets through the extended attributes for those particular data types if you wish. Still support user-defined attributes, and they're listed also in the same dialogue in the editor, so the user can add their own extended attributes and add and change those as well. So they might, for example, you might want attributes to be available to custom forms, or you might have a service that can make use of extended attributes to define certain things that it does at runtime. And the GUI in the editor that deals with extended attributes has been enhanced as well. We'll look at that a little bit later. In addition to that design time, there is a facility at runtime to modify the values of extended attributes. So immediately before the dynamic form is rendered to the screen, it will call a plugin class, and in that plugin class you can do whatever you need to do to change the values and or set other extended attributes that you may wish to affect the display of the form. For example, there may be some information on the form that will be displayed, but based on the user that's actually going to be looking at the form, you might want to hide certain data or change it in some way for that particular user. And yeah, so that's that. So each extended attribute is assigned a type. So it can be a type Boolean, which is of course a true or false value, a string value, a colour, which means it's a colour setting, so a background colour, foreground colour, font colour, a particular font family, whether it's an integer or a whole number, a double number value, an enumeration of numbers or strings, an X query, so you can enter an X query as an extended attribute, and it will evaluate that and output the evaluation of the expression, or text, which is basically a long string. So at design time, the attributes type determines how the actual attribute is rendered in the dialog in the editor, and which appropriate type editor or sub-editor is available for that type. So for example, if you choose a colour type, you'll be able to open up a colour picker dialog to choose a colour for that extended attribute. And also the type also determines some validation that's done on the value that's set for the extended attribute as well. So, just an example of the extended attribute dialog for the decomposition level. So there's two levels of extended attribute. One is the decomposition, which affects things on the whole web form itself. So for example, you can change the background colour, the alternate background colour, change the font, colour name size, and so on. You can hide the standard YAWL header on the top if you wish. You can change the page background colour or the background image, which is the area outside of the form itself, and so on. And when you click on a field here, you get the little button with the ellipse, and if you open that up, you open up a type-specific dialog for that particular value. So in this case, for a font name, it will open up a font dialog as the example there. So pressing that button will show the font dialog from which you can pick a particular font, and in so doing, it will fill up the font name, the font size, and the font style attributes for that dialog. This is what happens when the user defines their own attributes. The default extended attributes are listed at the top in black, and the user-defined ones are listed underneath in blue, so you can see immediately the distinction between those two. So a user might want to create, as I said before, and their own attributes for their custom forms, for example, that will affect those. These are read in from a properties file that is made available to the editor, and they can be changed through that same dialog. Okay, so as an example of the sort of thing you can do, here we have a very simple process where a question is asked, and then we can see what the answer is given to this question. So by default, it is to generate a form for the answer task, which just shows the name of the task, the name of the variable, and its value. Which is, as I said, it does the job, but it's quite bland. It doesn't really, it's not really nice to look at. But here we can change some things. We can set the background colour of the form to white, which is the blue box inside. We can change that to white. We can set the background image to a file. We can hide the YAWL banner at the top. We can put a space in for the title to suppress the title itself, and a space in for the label to suppress the prompt, so no answer, as we saw in the previous example. Then at the variable level, we will change the way the variable itself is rendered. We can change its font to capital size 20 and give it colour. We can put an image above the field, so we can have another image above. We can have an image above or below each field on the form. You can choose how you you can choose how you want to align that image, whether it's centre, left or right. We can hide the field itself. So in this case, we want to actually hide the field because we're going to put the answer in some text below. So we can set our text below extended attribute to read the answer is, and an X query that gets the value of the variable from the variable itself. Okay, so after we've done those few things, and we run it again, this is the form that we see now. Nothing's been changed on this form except for those extended attributes that we set at design time. So you can see we've got an image for the background, we've changed the background colour of the form, we've put an image on the form, we've changed the colouring size of the text, and embedded the value for the answer inside the text. So that's just one example of what you can do, but of course the sky's the limit as to what you can do, and all of the details of all of the extended attributes are in the user manual, rather than go through them all now. So the ability to embed expressions in text is quite powerful. For example, you can add values from different fields together. You can do if statements in the next query, so you can say if you passed, then you write passed, you can also write failed. And so rather than just show the text field with a boolean value, you can actually replace it with text to make that form look more reasonable.